Good afternoon, good, wonderful people. I hope you guys are doing well. My name is Dr. Ashley Wade. I bet you can hear me now. I bet you can hear me. Welcome, guys. Today is Zora Fest at the Oak Cliff Cultural Center. I do want to mention that the Oak Cliff Cultural Center is a division of Dallas Arts and Culture, and we're really happy to be bringing you this production. Lots of great events going on today here at the center. And I'm going to be joined by Rae Chesny, the I'm so excited for this conversation today. I hope you guys are well. There we go.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, we are official. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's so funny doing these lives. I'm usually the one leading them for the trust, and people join, but there's always some type of technical difficulty. So we just make it do what it do.
That's
That's it.
what makes it fun. It's like, okay, look, we're human. We're having this experience, and we're figuring this out. And we're experts at this, so we'll figure it out quickly. Is the thing.
It's the
How's your day
thing.
going?
It's good. It's actually, is it sunny
It
down there
is
and warm?
sunny. It's beautiful.
So we got all the snow
Oh,
up here in Michigan. So send me some sunshine and some warmth.
I definitely. Well, now we're coming up on some snow. I think Monday is supposed to snow, and we're not used to that down here in Texas. We like our sun and our warmth.
How much
So
snow
yeah,
are you guys supposed to get?
I'm not sure. And this is how we quantify snow in Texas by how many days we gonna have to adjust our schedule. So we're
Oh,
supposed to get
gotcha.
snow Monday. Hopefully, we're back to normal by Tuesday or Wednesday. In Texas, it doesn't linger.
All
The snow doesn't
right.
linger. So we want to end. Cool. We have a good time. And
Yeah, so Zora was like that. I don't know if you knew, but like the New York situation, she was the queen of the Harlem Renaissance, but she didn't stay in Harlem and in New York too long. And if she did, they didn't have that language back then, but she suffered from SAD and she'd be like, I got to get back to
yeah.
Florida because she had a song. She was like, I can make a refrain of just the phrase, I hate snow.
I mean, that's a whole play. Thank you, Zora, for calling that out for us Southern girls because, baby, we don't know how to operate, especially in
I
Texas.
hear that. I hear that. So thank you so much for having me. And thanks to Oak Cliff for asking me to be here to talk about Zora. You guys can probably tell by my bookshelf, like this is just one of
Oh,
them. And you can't see the whole bookshelf, just Zora.
just Zora, Zora. We're
Zora.
definitely glad to have you. And especially, we're here on site celebrating Zora today. It's Zora Fest. So we've got really cool events. The Oak Cliff Cultural Center is a division of art. So we have lots of art. So this is the perfect place to celebrate her legacy and how much she means to us and
Mhm.
our culture. So, it's a wonderful day. And it's a pleasure to have you, the Zora girl, to celebrate Zora with us. And we saw that you had some really great conversations and interviews to celebrate Zora's birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
tell us about that.
Yeah. So actually, I am a Zora Neale Hurston scholar, and I did not know that whatsoever. I found out from her hometown of Eatonville, which if you don't know, they don't play in Eatonville. It's a little 1.5 square mile town, but that was Zora's beloved hometown. It still exists. It's about 6 miles from downtown Orlando, and
Okay.
they don't just let anybody come in there. So I found out when the library applied at the end of 2021 to have me come down and do a series where I talked about Zora. And I
Wow.
told the branch manager, I was like, I know a lot about her and I love her because it was for me.
Okay.
That's how I came to Zora. It was for me. I was like, as a writer, as an artist, I want to figure out like, is there a blueprint somewhere? And am I crazy? Am I doing this wrong? Like, what's up? And so my research was through that lens, and I hadn't called it research. I called it getting to
Absolutely.
know her because very basic level, wanting to know her. And they said, no, Ray, you're truly a Zora Neale Hurston scholar. So I was like, all right, when y'all go to the Florida Humanities, them people gonna be like, nah, you ain't no Zora. I don't fit any of the criteria that they set forth for what it
Aw,
means to be a scholar and lead series or programming that they fund. And so we actually went to a webinar because I was like, let me come because I want to see what they say. And they were like, yeah, no, Ray, we know who you are and we recognize you as a Zora. I was like, wait, what? So between
like, okay, there's that
but
notification.
yeah, so between her hometown, the library in her hometown, then the Florida Humanities, then her family approached me. And it was really, really organic. So it means a lot to me that my love for Zora translates in these different spaces, even academia. So yeah, for the Zora Neale Hurston Trust, which is the organization that represents her familial descendants, and
Okay.
it's run by her familial descendants. Um, I support them as a resident scholar, connecting some dots on how we can creatively keep Zora's legacy present and also ushering in a new era of Zora. And so I am the host. That's where it started. I'm the host of a series that just launched on YouTube called
Okay.
It's All About Zora. And then we decided to do an Instagram live version that we do each Wednesday. So you can follow the Zora Neale Hurston Trust. And that's just so that we keep the conversation going. One of the things, I've been very welcomed into some spaces I wouldn't think I would be
Okay.
because my approach is different. But even by, for example, Carla Kaplan, she collected and edited 600 letters written by Zora into this book. I'm looking at it right now. But edited them, and she had to do 3,000 annotations. And she recognizes me, and she's like my fairy godmother, if you will, when it comes to
Oh.
the legacy of Zora. Dr. Kendi, we had a live for Zora's birthday. Yeah, you're like, yep, that's the one you
Yeah,
want to
I
talk
saw
about.
that. I was like,
And he was actually my first interview I did for the YouTube
okay,
series.
okay.
And I'm used to being interviewed, but I had not been on that side. And he was just like so welcoming and everything. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. Carla too, same thing. But Dr. Kendi is Dr. Wade,
Oof.
I'm telling you.
Listen.
It's behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. It's some correct, like I could have never, ever imagined. So I've had the honor and privilege of interviewing Dr. Ibram X. Kendi 3 times,
Golly.
twice for the Zora Neale Hurston Trust because he's adapting 6 of Zora's works into
Incredible.
children's literature.
Incredible. I saw that he just released
It
Barcoon
comes up.
at the younger.
Yeah, so Baracone actually releases on the
Okay.
23rd of this month.
Okay.
So you can catch him. He's going on this I'm like, Dr. Kendi, when do you sleep? He has 2 young children, one under 1, and he be everywhere. But he's
Unbelievable.
going on tour for Baracone. And actually,
Okay.
Baracone is right behind me. And so that was Zora in 1927 and 1928. She was a trained anthropologist, and she traveled to Alabama. She was traveling around a very racist,
Yes.
very racist American South during the height of Jim Crow as an anthropologist, collecting these narratives and cultural artifacts of our people. And so one of them, she went to interview Oluwale Kasula, Kojo Lewis, and the book, Barracoon, it's her field notes. It's her interviewing him and framing his life experience. She did it very lovingly. It was not done at that time in that way. She recorded his personal narrative in his voice, phonetically. Like, that's how he said it. That's how I'm going to write it
Yes.
down, which is excuse my language, kids, hell of a talent to be
Yeah.
able to phonetically capture dialect and vernacular. And so this book, Barracoon, Zora's Barracoon, wasn't published until 2018.
Wow.
She died in 1960.
Oh, wow.
And then Dr. Kendi came in and said, I'm going to adapt it for children 8 to 12. So we talked about that on Zora's birthday, which I think was very fitting, over on HarperCollins page. So you guys can go see that replay over at HarperCollins. And Dr. He just, I was like, that's the one she's going to want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Because, I mean, people are doing so many great things to keep her legacy alive. And I think that's beautiful. And I think your personality fits her legacy the most because you're warm and welcoming. And I think that's what makes you different. I mean, there's a ton of scholars who do, their research, they do presentations in a certain way. And I think, your personality, which you may agree, fits right with Zora, especially to be able to go into Alabama and make friends essentially with Barcoon, and present his story. I mean, sit and listen, to digest, to laugh, and just really engage in his life story and present in that book. She had to have a certain personality, you know what I'm saying, to connect with people. So I feel like, I'm proud of you, first of all. Congratulations. for just stepping into that role to teaching our generation about Zora.
Thank you so much. I mean, I really, and I think, I got to call a spade a spade. This is also something I get from Zora. Because a lot of times we can see iterations of scholarship, which is more common when it's more about the ego of the scholar than the audience.
Absolutely.
And so my children's book, Zora's Garden, is right behind me. And I get that question all the time, like, well, you're a Zora Neale Hurston scholar. Why aren't you publishing in journals,
Right,
academic
right,
journals
right.
and things like that? And I'm like, because I'm always thinking about the progression of her legacy. And if I don't have someone to pass the torch to, many someone's, I hope, then I failed, number one. And number two, all of it, that's me and Dr. Kenny were talking about. All of us are big kids at
Yeah.
heart, but we get away from accepting that and living in that space about ourselves and allowing ourselves to feel joy around this work. And so a lot of times forgetting to serve the audience. If
There
I'm
you go.
talking and y'all don't feel curious or excited about Zora, if you don't leave and say, let me go look up that book or let me look up something about her, I didn't know that, I failed. And so I tell my audiences all the time, I can talk about Zora for hours,
Girl, you
nonstop. For the Florida
said
Humanities,
hours.
hours. Yeah, for the Florida Humanities program, it was a series. It was just me talking. We did 4 programs in
Wow.
3 days.
Oh, wow.
All of them ran over. We did a walking tour of her hometown of Eatonville. And that I'm here to serve. If I don't give some type of connection to Zora, to my audience, I have failed. Like, it's not a celebration. Like, ooh, yeah, I know all of this. I can keep it to myself. And if the people don't get it,
Exactly.
oh well.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
And it's a different level of teaching, in my opinion, because if you talk to teachers back in the day, they taught a certain way, they had a certain standard in the classroom, and so now this is our classroom on Instagram or YouTube. It's a lot of people's classrooms, and so I just think that it's so important that the stories are told. Her personal legacy of her life and the way that she progressed in her anthropology is so important, definitely for children to know, but even people mid-age who really
Yeah.
may have tapped into Zora later in life to really get the full scope if we read maybe 1 or 2 books.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can listen to you and you can tell us all about her, especially with the people that you interviewed as well, who love her so much and her legacy and honor that. And so the lay people can see, like, you can be a regular person
Yep.
and still have a super calling on your life for the ancestors, for Zora.
Yep. And you can come to it anyway. So first off, on being a regular person, super regular, 7-year
Super
old
regular.
son, rushing him out to the babysitter while I'm taking braids out of my hair to get ready for this. Super regular person. And Zora was a regular person. And that was something else Dr. Kenny and I talked about for HarperCollins Live commemorating Zora. Because you have achieved certain things, or because the perception is that you are successful, you can have wealth, you can have all of these things, but you are not excluded from the human experience. And that is very true of Zora. She suffered and sacrificed to no end. It's true of Dr. Kendi. It's true. And I think I get excited when I get to be in conversation with other Zora scholars and even people who want to know about her and say, okay, I know this, because there's room truly for all of us to take our piece of Zora's legacy and move it forward, to teach. And it doesn't have to be a competition. Like this lady, when we get to the politics and stuff, I'm like, Zora, you lost me. And I have to email Carla, and I'm like, Carla, can you translate this and this for me? But then you look at Dr. Kendi, and he's taking the anti-racist angle. Dr. Daniel Black, he's teaching Barracoon at Clark University. Wow. And he's saying things like, Zora lived every denomination of being human. And I'm like, I love that. You should trademark it. I love that. And so I am as much of a student as other scholars. And it's true inclusivity to say, like, yeah, let's all do this and move that work forward. And I am so glad to have been welcomed in this way. I have taught everyone from educators, telling them, actually, when I was in high school, I did not read Their Eyes Were Watching God when it was assigned. And they're like, oh, but then they want a 3-hour talk. Because they're teaching Zora, but they may not know, they're teaching Zora's work. Absolutely. But they may not know about Zora. Absolutely. So I'm saying, here's my secret sauce for your students who are like I was when I would have been in your classroom, to get them interested in reading a book, but also here's opportunity for you. And I think that's what is it's room
Girl,
it's room for all of us.
yes. And I appreciate that. And I think she appreciates that as well. And I feel like that was her message when she was in her work with anthropology, you know. And it's funny because I wonder, did she know that we were going to need this? Did she know that we would be, in 2023, 24, still in exploration of our people, still wanting to understand what it was like back then, what our people were like? And I appreciate her for that, because now, that's what we're seeking her work to find answers and to
Yeah.
find out what was going on in the culture, what were we doing. And I just recently found out that she did films. I said, Zora.
She's credited as the first Black woman filmmaker,
I
actually.
said, how incredible is that, though? So even back then, just being a huge pioneer as a Black woman, I'm like, dang, Zora, that's what you did. And then I saw some clips. I was like, Zora, you was really outside.
Yeah. Actually, if you watch Descendant
I
on
did.
Netflix, you
Mm-hmm.
hear Zora. This is Zora Neale Hurston, and I collected this song in 1940. So this is her performing songs that she collected as an anthropologist in the
Wow.
field with what she called the Negro Lois Down. All right, so I got to go into scholar mode
Please
for
do.
2.5 seconds.
Please.
Because the framing, that's the other thing, the framing, the context matters so much. And so this is why this is living work for me, because there's always more context to understand. Okay, so Zora was the queen of the Harlem Renaissance, and us Black folk, we always thought, oh, the Harlem Renaissance was the greatest Black movement when it comes to the
Right.
arts. Well, the Harlem Renaissance was actually political. It was the artistic organ of a political movement,
I see. I
because
see.
this is 2 generations after enslavement has been abolished and Black people are asking the conversation and answer really to white voices, who are Black people? Okay, now
I
y'all want
see.
to be free.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, y'all didn't want to be enslaved. So what y'all do?
Yeah.
Who are
Yeah.
y'all? And so the Harlem Renaissance was really started, even though Elaine Locke and W.E.B. Du Bois are credited with starting the Harlem Renaissance, Zora credits Charles S. Johnson. The
Hmm.
reason she credits Charles S. Johnson of the Urban League is because there were these systems, I like to call them the artistic underground railroad, right? Where we are trying to show that Black people are as creative and artistic and intelligent as every other really the whites, okay?
Right. The
But
folks.
they say, how do we prove it? At that time, the NAACP, and I want to frame this, Zora was born in 1891. Despite lying about her age, she was born in 1891. The NAACP and Urban League were founded in 1909 and 1910.
Okay.
So she like, I already know some stuff. My dad was born into slavery. My grandparents were enslaved. So y'all younger ones and y'all
Big six.
Northerners who don't know about the Southern Black experience are trying to be thought leaders and a mouthpiece of our entire people. And so at that time, the NAACP already had The Crisis, which was a literary journal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Charles S. Johnson of the Urban League said we ought to do that too. Here's where Zora is in these early 1920s. She's at Howard. She's on Howard's campus. She is orphaned at this point. She has been orphaned because her mother died when she
Mm-hmm.
was 13. Her dad disowned her, told her school they could adopt her. Let's make that clear. So she's been on this journey truly to continue her education. She's on Howard's campus and she competes to join the Stylist Literary Society.
Okay.
Very selective. It is overseen by Elaine
Okay.
Locke, psychology professor at Howard. Well, he is in communication with Charles S. Johnson. Charles S. Johnson say, I want to start our literary journal to compete with The Crisis at the NAACP.
Okay.
Got any talented Black writers over there? Here we go with the Underground Railroad of Artists. Oh, I got this girl named Zora. And funny enough, Langston Hughes actually tried to be involved with the stylist, and Elaine Locke never wrote
Ah.
him back. Yes. So he is funneling other Black artists, but
Right.
we talking about Zora. So
Right.
Zora's work to Charles S. Johnson. And so Charles S. Johnson starts to publish Zora's work in The Opportunity, which is the name of this literary journal.
Okay.
But it's I cannot make that more clear. It's the literary journal of a political organization. So it's propaganda. At the end of the day, it's propaganda.
I see what you mean.
Zora don't know that, right? So she don't know that. She like, listen, I'm trying to jump at the sun and make
Right.
it out here. So the next year, this is 1924. In 1925, Charles S. Johnson has this very progressive idea. And he says, I want to get these white folks who got the money, they may be artists, politicians. I want to position Black artists, young Black artists, in these upper echelon of white folks who can support their work. I want them in the same room.
Okay.
So he starts the Opportunity Awards. And the first Opportunity Awards was May 1st, 1925. Guess who won the most awards? Our girl. Our girl.
Let that work speak.
Yes. And just to frame that, Langston Hughes was already Langston Hughes at that time. He was one of the earliest Black writers to ever get a book deal. So let's make that clear.
Okay.
She won over Langston Hughes, but who's in the room? We have artist side, Connie Cullen, Wallace Thurman, Dorothy West, Zora. And here we are. She's competing with them. These people who are already up north and have been socialized.
I see.
Yes, but now we got this Southern girl who carried a map of Dixie on her tongue and who everyone want to know who she is. And to frame that, one of the judges for the contest was Fannie Hurst.
Okay.
White author of Imitation of Life. Another one is Annie Nathan Meyer, who's the founder of Barnard. And they want to know Zora. Fannie Hurst hires Zora as a secretary. She was a horrible secretary. She was like, let's just be friends, girl, because you don't have it. Annie Nathan Meyer says you should come to Barnard, which is the all-white girls' school affiliated with Columbia, right across the street. Zora becomes the first Black student there. And now she's starting to spread her wings. Elaine Locke gets her. He doesn't technically get her, but he is the right hand to this really racist white woman who wanted to be a patron. She thought she loved Black folks, but she called us primitives, y'all. So Black folks at that time called Native Americans. And he is the one who's mentoring Zora so that she's getting this upward mobility. But the problem is, and this is where Zora stands out, the answer at large to the question, who are Black people as a whole now? The response was things like The Talented Tenth by W.E.B. Du Bois.
Okay.
Right? Where we gonna take the cream off the top, right? And we gonna show that this is the new Negro, which is where the new Negro movement comes.
I see.
And so we're going to parade these young Black artists around, including Zora, and we are going to assimilate into white culture. So if you look at pictures from that time, how they're dressed, how our people are dressed, how they carry themselves, the ideals of going to Howard, ain't nothing wrong with that. I ain't saying that.
Right.
But the reasoning behind it is to assimilate at that time. Zora comes in and she like, I'm gonna say it how we taught. I'm going folklore. And so she was at odds with not just Black writers. And Zora was a person, when she was loved, and then when they wanted to hate her, they did. Because if you look at the other Black writers, especially the men, their criticisms of Zora is about her person, not about her work. So she's at odds with these Black male writers who's supposed to be in her corner. She's at odds in academia, because at that time in anthropology, the Native American was the focus. We was Negroes, they was Native Americans. I see. And so Zora's like, Black people got all that stuff too. All of the things y'all enamored and curious about and y'all fetishizing about with Native American, Black people got that too, and I can prove it. But as she's proving it and as she's developing a methodology of anthropology that don't even exist yet, right? Zora. Because you could not study your own people, because who was in academia?
Right.
You couldn't study your own people, And Zora decided, I'm going to study my own people, but I'm actually going to live among them, which we see in Barracoon.
Right.
I'm going to bring you watermelon and pecans and clingstone peaches so I can be in relationship with
Right,
you.
right, right.
Before, there was always scientific distance, right? And she was, when she would apply to fellowships and ask for recommendations, her people that was supposed to be her people, they was like, she ain't scientific enough. This is not considered real work. I do not think she's disciplined enough. Yeah. Listen, we only got an
God,
hour, but
they did Zora like that. See, I'm picking up the pieces. I love how you presenting the details. I'm picking up the pieces. I'm like, dang.
and that's the thing. Like, it's always business. It's always political, because even Fannie Hurst, who Zora and her went on a road trip through Canada. You supposed to be my girl, and you're saying I'm not scientific enough, but you're getting $500,000 advances in the 1920s. So, ma'am, me getting a fellowship does not stop your change at all.
But
But
you hating on me though, and I'm a
hate
creative,
on me.
and that's so
Yes.
funny how we have to defend that creativity even now today. People that are creative, we're better at not putting each other in a box, but still
Yes.
kind of with the divide between scholarship and the regular person. And I think that's why it's so important to present regular. I like that about you. I love that about what I've learned about Zora. She presented as a regular person, and she wanted to uplift and bring up the regular person. And I feel like that's what folks was hating on. Like, why you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I
Why do you think that
mean,
person's
it is.
important when we have all this upward mobility we need to be a part of and we need to address? And she was like, nah, like what are y'all shuttling around personally? Because if you can't uplift me, how you gonna uplift our people?
So Zora actually did not believe in Black thought leaders. And she
I
had
was
to so
very surprised when I found that out, that she really wasn't on the side of like Marcus Garvey. I was like, Zora?
but okay. So context for
Okay,
that.
please.
So we know NAACP and Urban
Yes.
League from this standpoint, from the organizations they have become and the longevity
Right.
they've had. But Zora and W.E.B. Du Bois was cool enough that she had forgot to get some stuff for her apartment in New Jersey. And she
Okay.
was like, she wrote him a letter and she was like, could you bring that by? And then I can get a visit out of you.
Okay.
So we're looking at it from front facing audience
I got
standpoint.
you.
Zora, the best way I can qualify to say, she was behind the scenes. So she know all of these people, like they little conversations, and she knows who they really are. And she like,
See.
come on, Marcus. That's why she wrote that whole thing. It was a piece of satire, but she was teasing Marcus Garvey for who he was, right? And to the public eye, it's like, how could you scrutinize this great Black thought leader? W.E. Du Bois, she called him Dr. Dubious. He found out, he was pissed off. But
It's like, really, Zora?
yeah, I mean, Carter G. Woodson funded 50% of her first fellowship when she went to interview, and she was mad. He made her go and do that. She was like, I want to be out in the place with the people. Like, I do not want to be talking to this old man or at Fort Mose transcribing court reports for your academic encyclopedia. I don't want to do it, right? And so she called Carter G. Woodson improperly born wretch. But
That
these
I'm
are
not
people.
surprised about. That I'm not surprised about.
Yeah, but you think about it, like we have our public facing personas
True.
and we know our Black thought leaders as that. But these were people with ideas trying to figure it
True.
out. And Zora was socialized with them. Even at Howard, she was going to Georgia Douglas Johnson's Saturday Nighters group where they're having this discourse about what's going on in the world and with Black people. And she's probably like, I done saw y'all pissy drunk and everything else. Like, please. Like,
I see. Back to the regular person. Come on, presentation.
like that's what y'all picked.
I
That's y'all.
see. I see.
But Zora, you had asked a question earlier about you wonder if Zora knew that we would need it. And I think when we frame Zora's life, her fight, why she did the things that she did, for me, Flo Turcotte at the University of Florida's Zora collection at the George A. Smathers Library, she bought it out to me and it changed my life. First off, I didn't know nothing about
Okay.
collections back in 2021. Or I didn't know I could go. I was like, they're not going to let me come in here.
And really like get comfortable in here with all this
I
work.
mean, just even come in here, I was like, I don't think I'm a person that gets to go to collections and see archives and stuff. And lo and behold, a lot of times I think Zora be wanting me to do stuff. She'd be like, listen, forget what you think. I'm
Yeah,
gonna drag you if I gotta drag
like
you over
okay, we
there.
showing up.
Yeah, so Flo Turcotte, who is over the Zora Neale Hurston collection at the University of Florida, she brings out this essay, Art and Such. And I will tell you, there's something very different, right? I was telling Carla this. I'm at the phase now where I read the books. I still read the books. I still
Okay.
consult the books. But there is ritual in going to archives.
I see, I
It's
see, I see.
something very different, especially I have cried. I be crying in the archive. I'm like, they're gonna kick me out because this is stuff that Zora touched, right? I'm reading her essay that she typed up by hand
Wow.
with pencil correction, right? Even been a Yale in the t-shirt I slept in. And I got to see the restricted Their Eyes Were Watching God
Wow.
handwritten manuscript that Zora finished in December of 1936. That video's on my page. I
Wow.
cried in here too. Because it's restricted and how do I get into these spaces? But when Flo Turcotte bought me Art and Such, I was like, this is it. This is it right here.
Okay.
She says something along the lines of all the undreamed of genius that must have existed. All the undreamed of geniuses that must have existed. And she's talking about Black people. She's saying there has been no true Negro artist, for better or for worse, all the reasons we know. But Zora took up the torch to say, I'm going to be that. I'm not going to be subjected to participating in this art as propaganda
I see, I see, I
ideology.
see.
I'm not going to assimilate because otherwise it's going to be lost. And she rose to great heights. Carla calls it the sea change. She says no other artist, period, has experienced a sea change of popularity, obscurity, and then back to the popularity we see Zora as an in today.
I see.
But she's saying Sankofa, the principle of looking back, going back
Yeah.
to get it, right?
Yes.
Looking to your past to know how to move forward. And so there is this continuum of legacy. Same reason I didn't know that, but same reason I did Zora's Garden. Okay, I can talk to you about Zora's life, Their Eyes Are Watching God,
Right.
Barracoon,
Right.
Seraph on the Swanee, all that. But there is a continuum of legacy that has to keep marching forward.
Agreed.
In our work, we don't always know how big it's going to be,
Come
if
on
it's
now.
going to be big, but you're reaching from the past and being in conversation with your ancestors
See.
to also think of who's coming after you.
Yes.
And that's what Zora, it's
Thank
a
you, Zora.
beautiful thing. Like Zora initiated into hoodoo in New Orleans. She went to Haiti to
Yeah.
study original African traditional religions. She photographed the first zombie. They was putting a root on her, the juju on her. Like
Yeah.
Zora went through it so that we would have this preserved record, not only to say, hey, and that's what she did for me. Not only say, I'm having this struggle and I'm trying to do this now, but my people been doing this.
Yeah. I see. I
My
see.
people
I see.
have been doing this. And Zora is saying, I'm not the only one, but this is how I'm going to do this, no matter how much I suffer. So records are held. That continuum starts with
See.
Oluwale
Yeah.
Kojo.
Yeah.
It starts with Miss Sally, who was up the river 200 miles from him, and her even making a decision, because here's the deceptive part. We think about it's the work that we produce, but sometimes it's having the wisdom to say, I'm not going to
Big
do this. And I'm going to
word.
tell you why. So she wrote Langston Hughes in
Okay.
1927 that there was a woman up the river 200 miles from Oluwale Kasula. She said he's a better talker than her. She's a better talker than him, but nobody will ever know about her except for me and you, because if they know, she will never get a moment's rest. In the field of anthropology, whenever there is a new finding, and this was so popular back then, whenever there was a new finding, everybody swarmed down on that person.
I see. I
Everybody.
got you. I got you. Okay.
She wasn't the first one to talk to this man. She wasn't the last one.
Mm.
She's the only one who recorded his personal narrative the way that
see. Okay, I did not know that.
Oh, Zora plagiarized in 1927 because he wouldn't talk to her. Let's talk about that. She plagiarized Emma Roche Langdon's historic sketches. I can't remember the rest of the title. He would not talk to her, and she didn't want to be there in the first place.
I see.
But then it shifted, and she's like, I think I could go back. I'm gonna take some fruit. I'm gonna take some ham. We're gonna kick it on the porch. We're gonna eat some watermelon. Yeah, and I'm gonna try it again, which I give her huge kudos for. But she had the wisdom of to say, this other lady, I know if I say anything to my mentor, Franz Boas, the father of American anthropology out of Columbia. He started the School of Anthropology at Columbia. They ain't gonna let her rest, and she deserves some rest, because she, come on now.
Come on.
Because sometimes it's not us, and it's not the right time. And so she was always balancing and being very thoughtful about that. And I think to see, because Zora had a temper. If you
can
Zora
tell
told
a little attitude, a little swag.
Not even a little like, like girl. when you get to know Zora, and I think that's what we have room to do. Anybody, if you say you love their work, learn as much as you can about them. See them as human. Don't do the shallow surface love. And I ain't saying you got to go as far as I do. But just put a little ritual in there, right? Because Zora told the president of Fisk University, Thomas E. Jones, that he ran his campus like a Georgia plantation, and all his faculty was just good on Uncle Thompson. I was like, girl, and she lost her, well, they reduced the amount significantly. She lost her Rosenwald Foundation fellowship after that. Yeah. And then here's what they did. Listen, so what we be thinking, we be feeling now, Zora got something for everybody, okay? Like, oh, it's not just me. And that's why we love her without even knowing this depth that we feel it, right?
Yeah.
So they reduced her fellowship. She was trying to get a PhD in anthropology. Number one, she didn't even have a degree in anthropology, which I'm like, cool. So these business degrees, me being a Zora scholar, Zora said it's okay, because she had a degree in English, right?
Okay.
But she wanted to get a PhD. She had Carter G. Woodson. She had Franz Boas backing her, right? To say, yes, we will. Franz Boas said, I will oversee her entire academic portion, because Zora, listen, if she liked the subject, she would get A's and B's. She ain't like it, C's and D's. My son yesterday, he was like, Zora got C's and D's. She did.
Regular person.
She was a regular person, but she did. She could not hold her tongue. If she felt something about something, she was gonna write you a letter. She was gonna say it to your face. She was gonna find out. So with the president of Fisk, what happened was she said that to him because we're taught the Chitlin circuit, right? And we think that's just for performative artists, so singers and dancers and everything. Well, academics and literary artists also traveled those same routes. And what they would do is they would speak at colleges, Black colleges, very few, but some progressive white college, they considered themselves progressive, I should say that. They might invite them in to give a speech. So Zora's at Fisk, and she is Zora at this point, right? Because it's 1933 or 1934. So you think she is a playwright at this time. She has participated, become the queen of the Harlem Renaissance. She know all of her Rolodex is her Rolodex.
Yeah.
And so what she didn't know was that Thomas, and maybe she knew, she didn't care. Thomas E. Jones was friends to Julius Rosenwald, who was over the Rosenwald Foundation, right? So he told her, like, there's a letter that I read at the archives. He was like, we need to knock her down a couple pegs. Yeah, so they was like, we gonna reduce with no pause, no nothing, because we just didn't like what she said, and we think she a biggity N-word. That's what they call you, right?
I see.
So she had been scheduled to go to Jamaica and Haiti. Originally, she wanted to go to West Africa to prove that this bridge exists and will always exist between Black folks and our West African roots. They said,
come on, Zora.
No, because remember what I said, anthropology, they would say, okay, we got something set up over there, other people to mean you can go there. They didn't have those in West Africa. So they said, well, you can go to Jamaica and Haiti. Then they said, nope, you didn't say what you didn't say. We're going to reduce that by half. it became so hard for Zora to even survive that she stopped going to class. She was like, just forget it. But here's the kicker. Have you heard of Catherine Dunham?
No.
All right. So Catherine Dunham, Debbie Allen. She
Okay.
was the Debbie Allen of her time, but she
Okay.
also mentored Debbie Allen, which is super
Okay.
cool. Debbie Allen actually talks about Catherine Dunham. And Catherine Dunham was an anthropologist,
Okay.
younger than Zora,
Okay.
Black woman, out of Chicago. And she studied under Melville Herskovitz, who is also a mentee of Franz Boas.
Okay.
Do you know they sent Catherine Dunham on Zora's itinerary, baby? And when I tell you, Zora was hot, and she was like, I don't have a way to prove it, but she's going on my exact itinerary. And so Catherine Dunham, she does go on the itinerary. Zora's still like, hey, you ain't do it how I would have did it, and you ain't get half of what you should have got.
Right.
However, Catherine Dunham, this is important because Catherine Dunham had appointed herself Zora's rival as a Black woman anthropologist.
Come on now.
Miss Catherine said, baby girl. So then she started figuring out like everyone knew Zora because someone hosted a Chicago tea in Miss Catherine's backyard. And Zora came through late because she was always late. And Catherine Dunham said, well, I had decided if I couldn't be more popular than her, then I would have. Miss Catherine was fine. Okay. If y'all look up Catherine Dunham,
I'm gonna have to double back and
yes.
circle back.
So Catherine Dunham said, well, if I can't be the leading Black woman anthropologist, if I can't beat Zora out for that, then at least I'm prettier than her. And in the 90s, Catherine Dunham said on film, she was like, and she came to that tea, I must have seen a bad picture or something. Do not sleep on my girl. Zora said,
like, don't play with it, don't play with it.
Yeah, she said, don't look at my field pictures because while you was in the academia, I was out in the field washing my face with laundry soap. But let me get a hold to some grease to press my hair, and you're going to find out.
Why y'all playing?
We got a comment they said, and she found out she was not, and she found out she was not. But Catherine Dunham is still important because Catherine Dunham goes on Zora's itinerary, and what she does is she brings back the rhythm and movement of our African ancestors, and she modernizes American dance. She starts her own dance school, which Debbie Allen, Alvin Ailey. She has, I don't think you can trademark dance moves or anything, but she had coined and designed these movements that were never seen on stage before. And so where at that time Zora was like, I want to be a playwright and put on authentic Negro theater. Catherine Dunham was like, let's do some authentic African dance.
Okay.
Yeah. But and I think that's the other thing, because we be thinking like, oh, it's certain people, us, who will be like, oh, come in if you get in the space, I'll support you. And then they be like, the crabs in the barrel. They had that back then. Because Langston Hughes and Zora was best friends during the Harlem Renaissance, as long as he was in a power position. When Zora started to accrue notoriety, then we got a problem.
Why we do that?
Human nature. It's the human condition. But they had it. We're talking 1920s and 1930s.
Right.
It ain't nothing new under the sun. But if you don't stand cold for the situation, you don't know.
And then you'll repeat it. You'll repeat the downfalls, and then not take the wisdom out of the lesson.
Yes. There they go, the Dunham technique. Yep, she had a Dunham technique. Ooh, I've trained in her technique, but didn't know all the history. Come on, and you got Rae in your name. We was here for each other. There we go.
Come on now. Yes, my good friend. She's a beautiful dancer. I didn't even know. And see, that's the good thing about connecting with you, because you're literally teaching us. You're teaching so many people who have different levels of her exposure, the tea. With the tea, not just about, her work, but like the tea behind the scenes, what all was going on, because we be needing to know. We need to know.
And I always apologize to Zora in advance, because Zora was notoriously private when it came to her private life. And I'd be like, girl, I got to tell them. So we need to connect them to your humanness. I got to tell them your business.
Yeah. We need to know.
We need to know. She was just as human as we are. She was just as human as we are. Flesh, blood, just as human. Struggles, family problems. At the University of Florida, they got so many damn collection letters for Zora. She
Come
died.
on.
Yes, she died. And I want to frame this. This is really important because what I'm going to say, I do not want you to let your mind stop there,
Okay.
because this is one of the many things they do to keep us from even pursuing not success on this earth, a materialistic, capitalistic frame, but truly leaving behind legacy. You will die broke, and they'll say, but she died broke. She
I
died
see.
broke, but look at her legacy. This woman died, and she was born 1891, January 7th, 1891. She died January 28th, 1960, and Zora is impacting every area of academia and popular culture, and I can prove it. I can. So that's wealth beyond
Uh
anything
oh.
that we could
Preach.
ever imagine. And she has left riches for us to find in every area: personal, professional,
Yeah.
creative. Yeah.
And then, so many people are looking, in this generation, we have a ton of good creative writers. And I know that even from reading Their Eyes Are Watching God, just the creativity and the flow into that, I see that in a lot of the newer authors. So I'm just like, the legacy that she passed along, even just the creativity, maybe not as quite on her personality, but the creativity, we're picking it up.
Yeah.
We got our Justin Wards, we have our wonderful authors who are continuously digging up and telling stories, but at the same time with the same finesse, I guess I'll say, that Zora
Mhm.
presented. And I'm just glad that we have her work to catch those things off of and then present for the next generation. Someone said also wanted to think about how intentional Zora was about cataloging and writing about her life. How might we in this era keep such record with intentionality?
Yeah, so actually, Zora was one of the first Black women, and I think it was a product truly because the saying, don't throw the baby out with the
Yeah,
bathwater. You got all the microaggressions, you have all the racism, discrimination, prejudice that are happening in Zora's life. But part of that socialization with a Fannie Hurst, with Max Eastman, with these other white patrons is that you start to learn some of the lay of the land,
I see.
right? So it benefited her because Zora put her name on all her stuff.
Come on, Zora.
Copywritten. You go to the Library of Congress, Zora is credited. And that's not the true end all be all to everything, but that's why her and Langston Hughes fell out. And it's considered the biggest literary quarrel in history because it was about
I
intellectual property. So
see. I
her
see.
grasp of intellectual property and ownership, and really before that, we call her Charlotte Osgood Mason. We call her a patron, but she really wasn't a patron to Zora because Zora was on a work for hire contract. And thank you, Carla Kaplan, because Carla broke it down for me. I was like, "Ooh," she was like, "So I want to make sure you don't do this." And that's what I mean. Carla's white.
I
Sometimes
see.
you need to reach beyond the direct connections you think you need
I
because
see.
there are other learnings, right? So she was on a work for hire contract, and Godmother, as her patron for her anthropological work, would take Zora's field notes and put them in a safety deposit box where Zora did not have access to
I
them.
see.
This this is her baptism by fire in this field. Hey, I don't got access to my own work. I think with that, Zora knew. She was like, oh, I have to have ownership of my work. And that's why we see Zora's work continuously popping up in
I
archives.
see.
And that's another conversation because who decides
Big,
what is archived and what is
big,
not, whose
big.
work, whose what is valuable enough to be archived, right? And so Zora, a lot of her stuff has been found in other people. So James Weldon Johnson, for example, who wrote the lyrics to what's our anthem, the Black anthem?
Negro National Anthem.
Yes, our Negro national
Mm-hmm.
anthem. He wrote that. That was him and his brother. But you have lots of Zora stuff in his, and you have Zora stuff in other because she was not considered at the time of death. She was a ward of the state. They was gonna burn her stuff up. The first police chief at Fort Pierce, where Zora's buried, yeah, he put it out with a garden hose. That's how we have Zora's stuff. But I will say, because Zora was private, she was not intentional at all about cataloging her
Okay.
life. What had
Come
happened was
on now.
Zora wrote everyone
Okay.
letters. Like if she went to the grocery store, and I'm not, this is not an exaggeration. If she went to the grocery store and the produce did not look right, she wrote that grocery store a letter. So what happened really is we owe a debt to the people who had letters from Zora, had
Okay. Okay.
communications from her, and said, yeah, this is important
Okay.
enough to keep it.
Okay.
Because at the time of her death in 1960, all of her books were out of print. Zora came back to the forefront because Alice Walker, if I'm not mistaken, she was at Central Michigan, and her friend Charlotte, was it Charlotte? I didn't forgot the lady's name, but she was a white high school teacher. And I think her first name was
Okay.
Charlotte. But she was doing a dissertation on Zora. And at that time, she was thought to have the most information on Zora of anyone. And so her and Alice Walker became friends. Alice Walker read a short story by her, and they went to Fort Pierce to find Zora's unmarked grave. So you think that space of those years, people keeping stuff, and I'm the number one because I would delete it. Like I don't like no type
I
of hoarding at all.
see. I
So
see.
Zora might have wrote me a letter.
You know, it's on the way. It's en route, and you just delete it.
Yeah, like I read it. I'm done. Like I don't want to have these papers stacked up. And so we owe a debt to number one, those people, but we also owe a debt to Valerie Boyd, may she rest in peace, who did the work, Carla Kaplan, who did the
Okay.
work of showing up in these spaces to dig, because science is slow.
That's
it's
a true
very
story.
it's very slow and it's very meticulous. So when we have written records that combine Zora's legacy that we can review, Robert Hemingway. I'm not a huge fan of his biography because it's a literary biography. It's a white man. He was like, I ain't telling y'all none of the tea. That's
Right.
the best part.
Right. That's what we want to know.
Yeah. And so them doing the work to dig in archives and to go talk to people. That's how we have it.
Come on now.
Zora rolled over in her grave. She knew we was reading her letters. It's like reading our text messages.
That's cute.
It's like reading our please, y'all, everyone watching this, if I become big and somebody want to read them, don't let them do it. Someone, please.
We're going to need
there's
the tea.
There's your public facing persona, and then they're private things. They're private things. So yeah, she wasn't intentional about recording. She just wrote everybody letters. It's some love letters. And Carla has said she thought after the publication of Zora Neale Hurston, The Life and Letters, more letters would emerge.
Okay.
But they really haven't. I have a contact in Ohio, and she has like 12 letters from a very weird relationship with this developer of a town in Florida. And I'm like, what was Zora talking? They talking about like guinea pigs and stuff. Like, Zora, what was y'all? What? Yeah. So yeah, she wasn't intentional though.
I appreciate that though. I mean, and that's almost a lost art form, is writing letters. And I think I mean, maybe we should receive something off of that, because again, the legacy that we leave is important. The legacy that we want to leave is so important. If we don't tell anybody, at least what our intentions are, even in a letter, whether we send it or read it or let somebody else share with it or not, at least there can be a record.
Can I tell you a secret?
I'm listening.
I've been writing Zora letters. That's how I connected. I've been writing her letters since I did my first ever happenstance presentation on her, or on Surface It Seems Happenstance. Very magical, unexpected relationship with Zora. And so since February, I think I wrote, February 2018, I wrote Zora the first letter. And it's even when I go back and read random ones, I'm like, oh my God, because it started out as permission. I've imposter syndrome. I don't think that I should be doing this. Do you want me to do it?
Come on now.
So now I've been like, girl, can you give me a break? Like, I am going to do it, Zora.
So y'all literally are communicating like that. I appreciate that.
Enough that my son, like just yesterday, he asked me if he could become a Zora scholar. She is like his spiritual grandmother. So I will say that I'm not objective. If you ask me to frame up relationships with Zora and people, I'm always going to take her side, even if she, that's my girl. And that's Cam. That's his girl, because their birthdays are 2 days apart. They the twins.
See how all that lined up?
They do.
Mm-hmm. What do you tell her? What is the essence of y'all's conversations? I'm curious.
Life, asking her questions, telling her how Cam is doing. I get to meet, it's such an honor. I get to meet and talk to Hurstons like damn near every day. Like, yeah, and Cam does as well. And so it's really a special relationship. If I'm struggling with things, if I need to vent, that's my girl.
Yes,
I
yes.
know she get mad when I say she's Cam's spiritual grandmother, because Zora be like, absolutely not, auntie.
Right.
Auntie, ma'am.
Right. Let's
But
circle
she
back.
does. She's changed every area of my life. So sometimes it's thank you. Sometimes it's going to the altar to venerate her. And she loved to smoke cigarettes, which we argue about. We argue.
Y'all be
It's
into it.
we be
I love that.
into
I
it.
love
I'd be
that.
like, what were you thinking? But even Cam, he asked yesterday, he's like, and I love that. He's 7 and he's asking things like, did Zora love cake? It's 10:30 at night before he goes to bed, and he wants to know, did Zora like cake? And so I'm like, you know what? I don't remember ever reading that she liked cake, but I
Okay.
think she did, because Zora was a fantastic cook. And
Did
Ann
not
Nathan
know
Meyer,
that.
who was the founder of Barnard, there are letters where she's telling Ann Nathan Meyer and her patron that she's gonna make them cakes. And so I got to read him the letter, and he's like, he wants to know it's the little details. It's insane. Like Dr. Kendi, he said, I don't know, 5 years you started ago, and you know all this about Zora.
It's
It's
the real
her, because sometimes I
Zora.
can't
It's the
speak.
real Zora that you know about. And then what I love the most is the spiritual connection. Even like when you went to her gravesite, and of course, you have pictures and all that on your page. Like that spiritual connection is so important. I think in this generation we miss it. She knew it. That's why she told the stories and was a really great anthropologist. But I think we kind of lost that idea of a spiritual connection with our ancestors. And so just the fact that y'all converse and you write her letters, and she has a special relationship with your
Yeah.
son, which we
Yeah.
can't even
No.
quantify. You know what I'm saying? We can't even put our finger on it. And I just think that's the beauty of the whole thing, the beauty of today, the beauty of us being here, in her honor, the work that you do and the work that so many other people do. I'm like, Zora, you really was the ish. You know what I'm saying? You
It
knew it,
really,
but you may not have known the magnitude of how we still need your spirit. We still
yeah.
need you to intercede. We still need, some guidance from your perspective.
Yeah. I think she
You
knew.
think
I think she knew.
you
She
know,
knew what she was
what's
doing.
she
I
up there
think she knew.
doing? How's she looking at us right now? She looking like, oh, okay.
So
I see
there's
what
this
y'all did.
picture. Oh, it's not behind me.
Okay.
But her most famous picture, Zora has this little smirk, and half of her face is not in full focus. She sits across from my desk on the altar, and
Okay.
it'd be certain stuff that happen, and she'd be smirking. I'd be like, "Girl, I know." Like, she'd be like, "You see what I did there? You see what I'm gonna have you do, and I
Yeah.
need you to do it." So she knows she has a very strong presence as an ancestor that is
Come
everlasting.
on now.
She is. That's why the trust says a woman for all times. Like she truly, truly, truly is. But I would be remiss if I did not recognize the Cheryl
Okay.
Walls, the Valerie Boys, the
I
Carla Kaplans,
see.
the Dr. Kendys. He said something beautiful. He was like, her black male contemporaries that were writers did her bad. So I'm trying to, by me
Makeup.
adapting,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to get them
Yeah.
together
Yeah. Yeah.
on so we can do right by Zora
Come on
as
now.
black men. So I stand on their shoulders. Had they not done this work, I would not be doing this
I
work.
see.
If Valerie Boyd had not said in her book, which is the best biography I have ever read, she says, and thank you, Zora, for choosing me. Girl, I crumbled. I was like,
Girl,
Zora choose people in 2018. I was like, she
she out there
choose people.
hand
How do you
picking.
know you get chose? Yeah, but now it's very clear. And so I think having that space to take Valerie Boyd blended
Come
love
on
and scholarship,
now.
now I'll be leading with the love. Like I can give y'all the facts, but it's truly the love. It is the love.
Come on now. Now it was a love, and that's why we honor that, and we want to continue to push that narrative forward that it was the love. And again, with your personality, and I don't know, I'm not familiar with the people that you mentioned, but I'm like, it all comes together and it meshes into this beautiful quilt of consciousness, of awareness, of perspective. Like so many gems we get from her as a person and her work. And I think the biggest thing that I personally pick up is the confident black girl. The
Mhm.
confident black girl persona, like that is so important, even for us now as we navigate being authors, being creatives, we're a little bit more open because I think we picked up the lessons and the wisdom. But I just like that confident Black girl and the smirk and, you know, her and her hats and stuff and being in the
Her
community. I
head at a
saw one
smoothie
video
angle.
where she was playing, she, you know, she was immersed in, you think that she was in somebody's living room and everybody was playing the drums and she playing the drums. Like that confident Black girl, like, I'm going in this place
Oh, I think you're
and I'm gonna
talking
be
about
me.
yeah, I think you're talking about Beaufort,
Yeah,
South Carolina. She was
yeah.
on a field tour. She was
Was
in a
she?
church. She was in a Black church studying trance and religion in the 1940s for Jane Bellowes. Yeah.
You going into these spaces, you know, and
Yeah.
again, we mentioned imposter syndrome. We are called to these spaces, but then when we get here, we're like, okay, is this gonna, am I enough when I get there? And so I channeled that even from, you know, the books that I read. I channeled that part of her legacy of, hey, you here, show up and be you. And
Yeah,
however the
show
people
up and
receive
be
you is how
you.
the people receive you. But that is really the essence. And I think that's what continues to pass down is that confidence that she can instill in each of us to be exactly who we're supposed to be.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, the way you dress and everything, the way you show up, you got a lot of Zora in
Girl,
you
don't
too.
tell
Because I'm like,
me
that's
that.
now for real. That's how Zora was. She would show up and people were like, she dressed crazy. You imagine she's dressed like you with these indigenous garments from around the world showing up, you know, in the 1920s. And they talking,
Where'd
where'd
she
she
get
get this from?
that from? And she coming here for us? Like, what's the
And she's
play? What's this about?
entering after parties after she's won the most awards, throwing brightly colored scarves. I was like, y'all had after parties back then, but throwing brightly colored scarves over her shoulder, stopping a party in the middle of it, yelling out the title of her award-winning short story, Colors. So yeah, you got a lot of Zora in you too.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
receive that. I'll receive that, and I'm gonna pass that forward. We have so much going on here at the Oak Cliff Cultural Center today. In her honor, a lot of creation, some storytelling. We have so much going on here. Thank you, Rae, really for teaching us and really taking that posture to tell us who Zora was. On a day that we're in Dallas, Texas, celebrating at the Oak Cliff Cultural Center. She's talking about that's a fact. You know, I do what I can. But again, we appreciate your expertise and your willingness to share. And I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, you get in certain scholarly spaces and people are like, well, you didn't know that, you didn't know that. But it's all learning, it's all love, it's all learning. And you know, there are people here, you know, ready to create. They're ready to find out about Zora, because there are going to be some people here on site who don't know who she is, but they're here in the building, you know. So we were just really happy to be able to share with our community, in person and online, about Zora. And you taught us a lot today. Thank you so much, Rae.
Thank you so much for having me. And the people said, make sure you repost the replay. I saw
I've
that.
seen it several times. They're like, okay, don't hit discard, don't hit delete on accident. Be sharp with your skill.
We can trust the good
See what
doctor,
I'm
y'all. She gonna repost
saying?
it.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I hope you have a
All right.
great rest of your day. We took a little bit more time that we wanted to. We started off with a little technicality. But again, we appreciate your patience. Thank you for all you do. Continue to shine your light, because we need people like you to be in spaces to teach and educate, on a scholarly level and on a regular people level. You know, we trying to get the tea. We want to understand who we are as people, who we are culturally. And I think, you know, that Sankofa concept that you brought up is so important for us to receive today and moving forward. We do have to look back. The history is there, the documentation is there, and we want to honor that within ourselves and then push that forward to the next generation. So I'm gonna be hollering at you, girl, because I gotta follow up and be like, okay, let me get another listen. I'm ready for the
Absolutely.
tea.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And one more thing before we go, just to honor her, if she had a message for us right now, 2024, we just
Mhm.
got here, what would it be?
Two.
Okay.
So her mother, Lucy Hurston, was her biggest supporter in life. And she told all of her children, all eight
Okay.
of them, to jump at the sun. And that was her way of saying dream big. And Miss Lucy said, you may not reach the sun, but at least you get off the ground. So it will be that. And the second one is the ideology, which is the title of her short story collection, Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick. We not a lot of us, we ain't supposed to be
Come
here. We ain't supposed to make it. We ain't
on
supposed to be
now.
doing what we're doing. But there are a myriad of ways to hit that straight lick with your crooked stick. So keep swinging.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. And so we honor you so much. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You
And I hope to
too.
see you guys here at the Cultural Center today to celebrate Zora Fest with us. Again, seek peace Until next time, we'll see you later. Peace and love.